I think that Joe Biden owes his entire political past as president and political future as a candidate to the fact that Donald Trump has to run. Biden's only reason for existence at 82 is Democrats believe they can drag him across the finish line. Donald Trump is the life vest that is keeping Joe Biden from sinking underwater and being abandoned by the Democrat Party.
We are weeks from the midterms, and man, it is interesting to see how this is all playing out. Democrats that I've been in touch with recently, or that I've seen trying to explain the Fetterman fiasco, are really running out of room to maneuver. It's not clear that he's going to debate Dr. Oz. We've been discussing that. Oz is very sharp, very smart, very polished. Fetterman shows up, and when he does speak, you think that it's like a robot with the batteries fading in real time, which is obviously not confidence-inspiring to anybody who thinks that a United States senator should be somebody who, has full ability, health, and control of his faculties. But there's a theory. I mean, Clay, it's getting out of control. I mean, it's very obvious with Fetterman what's going on here.
Yeah, and I think this is significant. Even left-leaning media is now starting to talk about Fetterman. I'm glad that you brought it up because it reminded me. The Washington Post editorial, did you see this that came out yesterday after our show? John Fetterman needs to debate more than once for the U.S. Senate. This is from the Washington Post editorial board. Right after our show finished yesterday, one of their top editors for the newspaper said people need to be able to see the Fetterman. And this editorial's pretty crushing. The Fetterman campaign squandered credibility by concealing for the public for 2 days after his stroke. They haven't been forthcoming with his medical history. It's not good enough. He's asking, I'm reading from their editorial, which is, I think, a sign of a lot of momentum for Oz. He's asking voters for a 6-year contract without giving them enough information to make sound judgments about whether he's up for such a demanding job. We need, the Washington Post said, full disclosure of his health records, and he should debate Mr. Oz before voters start casting their ballots, and that this must happen. So, I mean, the fact that the Washington Post is calling him out is a pretty significant detail.
Well, these are lagging indicators from regime media, right? When it becomes too obvious, when it is no longer possible for them with a straight face, without destroying whatever shred of credibility they have, that they're a fact-based, reality-based organization, when it's no longer defensible, then they start to write these editorials. We're at that place with Fetterman. But my thesis here, Clay, is this is a broader theme. There are a number of candidates who are really just trying to do the Biden in the basement routine, hoping that regime media, the narratives of Trump and the insurrection and, hey, inflation's not really that bad, it's just really bad, and all these things we're hearing. And, the Dobbs decision, the women are going to rush to the polls, it's not even worth Republicans voting anymore. All these things that are, I think, at some level meant to do Republican enthusiasm suppression and to turn out the left-wing base and avoid the fact that the candidates the Democrats are putting forward in a number of these key races are just not good. And we talked about Fetterman, which now, and this is beyond doubt, and this is a health issue. I mean, this is deep cynicism that he should suspend his campaign. This is what they're doing is gross. It's wrong that this guy is going to be the Democrat nominee from that state because they're essentially hoping that they can get away with an emperor has no clothes situation there with enough voters, right. Not with all the voters. But even in Arizona, Kari Lake, who we both think is a future star of the GOP, she put out this ad because Katie Hobbs is basically saying, I will not share a debate stage with Kari Lake. Kari is hitting back on this one.
For the first time in the history of our state, there will be no clean elections gubernatorial debate. Bucking state tradition, my opponent, Katie Hobbs, has made it official. She will not share a debate stage with me under any circumstance. Now I'd like to speak directly to you, Katie. You think this issue is going to go away? That Arizonans will just throw up their hands and say, oh, well, no debate this year? Well, you're sorely mistaken. I have asked the Clean Elections Commission to extend the deadline for you to confirm your attendance to the day of the debate. Should you grow a spine between now and October 12th, there will be an empty chair waiting for you on the debate stage.
This is what needs to happen. Remember how we said Republicans need to go on offense, need to point out what their opponents, they have to force them into the public eye, because the game plan for Hobbs, for Fetterman, for, go down the
Mark
list.
Kelly, all of them.
For all of them is, I'm not like one of those crazy left-wing gender transition for 12-year-olds Democrats who's spending all the money and making your grocery prices and your gas prices go way up. I'm like a nice, moderate, normal Democrat. I'm not one of those. It's all a lie. And the game is to have the regime media at the national level, and then at the state level, unfortunately, all the major state newspapers in all these places, you're talking, whether it's Pittsburgh, Atlanta, anywhere in Arizona, obviously Arizona, Atlanta, I'm thinking about Georgia, but the biggest newspapers in all these states are essentially carrying water for the Democrat candidates. Between that, CNN, the New York Times, they think that that's how they win the election. Just have these candidates that no one really gets to ask any questions to.
Well, they're trying to hide. And I think it's significant, not only from radical propositions that they have espoused, but how good is Carrie Lake? I mean, she is such a stud. I said last week that guys, I know I love to gamble, that I would like to go with a parlay. I think Carrie Lake is going to end up winning comfortably in Arizona. She is just so smooth. She's incredibly crisp, super talented at communication skills, and devastating when she's that the way she just dropped in that grow a spine line was so well done. I think that Herschel Walker is going to win in Georgia, and I believe that Dr. Oz is going to end up winning in Pennsylvania. If I could hit on those as a parlay out there right now, I believe all three of those, I don't believe, I know it, all three of those candidates are considered gambling underdogs right now. If you look at the overall marketplace, you can gamble on American elections legally overseas. And so there's reliable markets there. I think all three of those underdogs are going to win. That'd be a heck of a parlay.
By the way, I think we should have legal. We should have legal political outcome gambling in this country. If we do it on sports, why can't you do it on political outcomes? Because so many of these pundits, man, these people that are, I know what's going to happen. Yeah, let's see the record,
Yeah, I agree. That's the tough thing. When you did 4 years in a row of sports gambling on TV, you can't run and hide from every pick you've ever made on a game. And it's tough, right? If you can get to 52.3% in sports gambling, you're a stud. If you can get to 55%, you end up like Biff in Back to the Future. That means you lose 45% of the time. But it's hard to beat the market in anything, right? Hard to beat the S&P 500. It's hard to beat consensus opinion. And I just think all three of those candidates, Carrie Lake, Dr. Oz, and Herschel Walker, are being undervalued now in the marketplace.
Can you tell me what I don't mean right this second, but can we do you know where to look for this? I'm wondering, because my belief right now, my strong belief right now, is that Joe Biden is running. That I am more confident on than most other predictions that I make. Joe Biden is going to run for re-election, and Donald Trump is going to run against him, and that we're going to have a replay. That is my.
So you think I can look up? I will give you. I'll look it up during the commercial break. I will tell you what that prediction would pay to this exact day if you were betting in England right now on that being. You could bet on the matchup of an election. You can bet on Biden versus Trump, part two.
And that's a perfect and smooth transition here, Clay, to the fixation that they still have on Trump. Now, remember, we talk about this in the context of understanding that when the libs, when the Democrats, when the Merrick Garland DOJ does this stuff, at some level, the process is the punishment for the people involved. So just getting the lawyers and having to deal with all this nonsense from the DOJ about January 6th, that's part of it. Also, it's a distraction tactic away from the wide open border. I mean, do you see, your colleague at Fox, Bill Malugin, he's got this live video of people in all camo with with essentially rope ladders going over it. I mean, the border's wide open, folks.
He does an incredible job covering the border region. I mean, he really does.
It's crazy, though, when you look at the numbers, when you start to actually – so anyway, we'll talk more about the border, but that's wide open. All these things, the economy, inflation numbers super bad. That's why the market got crushed by 800-plus points today. They want us talking about Trump. Now, that is in some ways a distraction, but we also have to be prepared. I think this is – politically, the bazooka they think they have in their back pocket, so to speak. I think the libs believe that if all else fails to divert what I just talked about, what we're talking about, the Trump-Biden matchup that's coming, they want to muddy up the waters. They want to do something. And that's why we have to take seriously still. We're going to have Julie Kelly joining us at the bottom of this hour. The possibility they are lining this up for some kind of a criminal prosecution of Donald Trump. Justice Department, this was just a New York Times piece yesterday, issued 40 subpoenas in a week, expanding its January 6th inquiry. They've also seized phones of 2 top Trump advisors. I mean, Clay, this could just be distraction to, and we don't know if it is or not until we see if they prosecute or not, right? Clearly, if they don't decide to prosecute, well, then this is just a distraction. But I think when you're talking about dozens and dozens of subpoenas and doing all this, we'll ask Julie about this. I don't think they've made the determination to prosecute Trump yet, but I don't think it's off the table yet based on what we're seeing right now. What do you think?
I think they're going to try to find a way to charge Trump in 23. I'm not sure that it's going to be over these documents, although it could be. What I think is going on right now is inflation's at 8.3%. They are trying desperately to make 2022 about Donald Trump. And to me, 2023 is all going to be about Donald Trump because is he going to run? Who's going to run against him? How do Republicans respond to the possibility that he might get indicted by his chief running opposition, which I think actually helps Trump somewhat. And this is my conspiracy theory, Buck. I think that Joe Biden owes his entire political past as president and political future as a candidate to the fact that Donald Trump has to run. Biden's only reason for existence at 82 is Democrats believe they can drag him across the finish line. Donald Trump is the life vest that is keeping Joe Biden from sinking underwater and being abandoned by the Democrat Party. And so I think, just think about this, everything that Joe Biden can do to antagonize Trump, to put Trump into the news, another analogy for you, these are like 2 heavyweight boxers in the 12th round. Either one of them would fall down if they weren't leaning on each other. And I'll give you the odds on the potential for a rematch when we come back in this next segment, Buck. But I do find it to be so intriguing, the desperate ploys by the Biden administration and their allies in the Justice Department to make the midterm about Trump as opposed to the futility of Biden. The Biden people are trying to box out everyone else and make it clear that they believe, it's crazy, that 82-year-old Joe Biden needs to run for president. And if you're doubting it, here is Dr. Jill Biden saying why her husband has to run in 2024.
Have you talked about it with him?
Not yet. We've been a little bit too busy. Not yet, but I'm sure it'll be a discussion.
Do you feel ready, you and President Biden, to hit a second presidential campaign? It has to be taxing.
Well, it is taxing, but look at all Joe has done. He has kept true to what he said he would do, and so I think he just needs to keep going.
Okay, so the dead straight odds, Buck, DeSantis Trump plus 120 to be the nominee for Republicans. But Joe Biden is now a substantial favorite to be the nominee in 2024. You think he's going to run?
I've been saying this all along. They don't look at what they're doing with Fetterman. They don't care how gross, absurd, and reckless it is to put somebody forward who's clearly not up for it. It's just about having the Democrat in the position of power, and the advisors and the apparatus around him does all the heavy lifting. That's it doesn't matter. They'll put anyone forward.
Here are the numbers you asked. You can gamble on this right now. If you believe Trump and Biden are going to run against each other in 2024, you can get plus 450 odds. So if you bet $100 on that being the matchup, Buck, you would get back $450. So, I mean, that they're saying that is less likely to happen than to happen. Now, factor in age. Both these guys are older. That probably is in the odds market. But you could go to England right now and get nearly 5-1 odds on that being the matchup.